Why so many tattoos, old man? Did you run out of paper, or did you just lose a lot of bets in port? The question hung in the air of the briefing room like the smell of ozone before a lightning strike. It came from the back row, delivered with a smirk by Ensign Miller, a 23-year-old specimen of physical perfection who had just graduated top of his Bud-S class. He was sitting with his arms crossed, biceps bulging against his crisp uniform, surrounded by 20 other fresh-faced SEAL candidates who looked like they could chew through steel cable. At the front of the room stood the man he was addressing, a 60-year-old guest instructor named Elias. Elias didn't look like a warrior. He looked like a drifter. His hair was thinning and gray, his face was a roadmap of deep, weathered lines, and he wore a simple black t-shirt that exposed arms covered in faded, dark, chaotic ink. To Miller, this guy looked like a relic, a biker who had wandered onto the base by mistake. But Miller was about to learn that there are predators in the deep ocean that don't need to look pretty to kill. If you believe that wisdom is earned through blood and that we should respect the warriors who paved the way, stop what you're doing, hit the like button, and type "respect" in the comments right now. Let's see who understands the true cost of freedom. The briefing room at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado was usually a place of high-tech strategy and cutting-edge warfare. The air conditioning hummed a low, constant note, keeping the temperature at a crisp 68 degrees to counteract the San Diego heat outside. The walls were lined with digital maps, satellite imagery, and the ethos of the teams. The only easy day was yesterday. The men sitting in the tiered seats were the new breed. They were faster, stronger, and smarter than any generation before them. They had trained with drones, advanced ballistics, and digital comms. They felt invincible. Then Elias had walked in. He carried no laptop, no PowerPoint clicker, no stack of manuals. He carried a paper cup of coffee and a battered notebook that looked like it had been soaked in salt water and dried in the sun a dozen times. He walked with a slight limp, a hitch in his left side that he didn't try to hide. He placed his coffee on the podium and stood there, silently scanning the room for a full minute. His eyes were the color of slate, flat and unreadable. That was when Miller had spoken up. The recruits were restless. They had expected a Tier 1 operator, someone straight from the sandbox with a beard and a loadout of stories about taking down high-value targets with suppressed carbines. Instead, they got a guy who looked like he fixed HVAC units in the 1980s. Miller's question was meant to break the tension, a little alpha dog flex to show the room he wasn't intimidated by the silence. A few of the other guys chuckled, a low rumble of agreement. The ink on Elias's arms was ugly. It wasn't the artistic sleeves you see today. It was dark, blotchy, and looked painful. There were jagged lines, coordinates, and crude symbols that blurred into one another. Elias didn't flinch at the insult. He didn't even look angry. He slowly took a sip of his coffee, set it down, and looked directly at Miller. The silence that followed stretched out, becoming uncomfortable. The chuckles died away. "You like the artwork, son?" Elias asked. His voice was soft, sounding like tires rolling over gravel. Miller shrugged, leaning back in his chair, confident in his status as the new elite. "Just curious. Usually we keep it professional. That looks chaotic, like a scrapbook with no order." Elias nodded slowly. He stepped away from the podium. He walked down the center aisle, moving closer to the recruits. As he got closer, the men could see the texture of his skin. It wasn't just ink. Beneath the tattoos were ridges, scars, burn marks that the ink had been used to color over. "Chaotic," Elias repeated. "That's a good word for it. War is chaos. You boys train for the grid, you train for the plan, but the plan is the first casualty of contact." He stopped right in front of Miller's desk. Miller sat up a little straighter, his arrogance flickering for a split second as he realized the old man's eyes were devoid of fear. They were the eyes of a shark, dead calm and utterly focused. You asked why so many, Elias said. He rolled his left shoulder forward, pointing to a faded, jagged black line that wrapped around his forearm like a snake. You see this one? It looks like a mistake, a bad line drawn by a drunk artist. Miller looked at it. Yeah, what is it? A river. It's a timeline, Elias said. 1989, Operation Just Cause, Panama. We were tasked with securing Paitila airfield. The intel was wrong. We weren't walking into a lightly guarded strip. We were walking into a meat grinder. We were pinned down on the tarmac, no cover, taking heavy machine gun fire from 3 sides. My swim buddy, a kid named Joey, took a round to the femoral artery in the first 30 seconds. The room went quiet. The air conditioning seemed to get louder. I dragged him behind the landing gear of a private jet, Elias continued, his voice devoid of drama, just stating facts. I put a tourniquet on him, but the fire was too heavy. We were trapped for 4 hours. This tattoo? I did it myself with a needle and India ink 3 days later. It traces the path of the blood that ran across the tarmac. It reminds me that plans fail, and when they do, you don't panic. You hold the line. Miller swallowed. He didn't say anything. Elias rolled up his other sleeve. He pointed to a cluster of 3 stars on his right bicep. They were uneven, the points dull. How about these? You think these are for style? Maybe I wanted to look like a general. No one laughed. 1993, Mogadishu, Elias said. The word hit the room like a physical weight. Every SEAL knew the Anpai history, but reading about it in a book and standing in front of a ghost who was there were 2 different things. We weren't supposed to be the main effort. We were support. But when the birds went down, everything shifted. We moved through the city on foot. It was a 360-degree ambush. We ran out of water. We ran out of ammo. We almost ran out of blood. He tapped the stars. 3 men in my squad didn't make it back to the hangar. I put these here to cover the shrapnel scars I took in my arm, pulling a Ranger out of a burning Humvee. Every time I lift something heavy, the scar tissue pulls. It hurts, and I'm glad it hurts, because the pain reminds me that I'm still here, and they aren't. Elias took a step back, addressing the whole room now. The recruits were leaning forward, their eyes wide. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a dawning realization of who they were sitting in the presence of. You look at me and you see an old man, Elias said, his voice rising slightly, filling the room with authority. You see faded ink and gray hair. You ask, why so many tattoos? The answer is simple. I have so many tattoos because I have come home so many times. Each one of these is a receipt for a life I lived, a death I dodged, or a brother I buried. He pointed to a complex, faded geometric shape on his wrist. Afghanistan, 2002, Agar, the mountains. The air was so thin you felt like you were breathing through a straw. We were hunting shadows in the caves. We were alone. No drone support, no SATCOM, just 6 of us and the cold. We were out there for 12 days. We ran out of food on day 4. We ate snow and stayed awake on pure hate. This mark? It's the constellation of Orion. It was the only thing I could see from the position where I lay for 48 hours, waiting for a sniper to make a mistake. He finally did. Elias looked back at Miller. You have clean skin, Ensign. You have bright eyes and a strong back. You know the theory of war. You know the tactics, but you don't know the weight. You haven't carried the weight yet. Miller looked down at his hands. His face was red, not with anger, but with shame. I didn't know, Master Chief. I apologize. I'm not a Master Chief anymore, Elias said softly. I'm just Elias. The rank stayed on the uniform when I took it off. The ink stayed on the skin. Just then, the heavy steel door at the back of the room opened. A commander in full dress whites walked in. It was Commander Vance, the commanding officer of the entire training group. The recruits instinctively jumped to their feet, snapping to attention. Attention on deck. Commander Vance waved a hand. As you were. Sit down. Vance walked to the front of the room. He didn't look at the recruits. He looked at Elias. The commander's face broke into a look of profound respect, bordering on reverence. He extended a hand. Elias, Vance said warmly. I wasn't sure you'd actually come. I said I would, sir, Elias replied, shaking the hand. Vance turned to the class. He saw the stunned expressions. He saw the tension. He looked at Miller, who was looking at the floor. I see you've met the legend, Vance said. Gentlemen, you are looking at the founding father of the tactical survival program you are currently studying. Before we had GPS, before we had thermal drones, we had men like Elias Thorne. He was a member of SEAL Team 6 before half of you were born. He has operated in more countries than you can name. He's the only man I know who has been awarded the Navy Cross twice. A collective gasp went through the room. The Navy Cross. Twice. That put him in the realm of mythology. I asked him to come here today not to teach you how to shoot, Vance continued. You already know how to shoot. I asked him here to teach you how to endure. Because the technology breaks, the batteries die, the comms go down, and when that happens, all you have left is what is inside your chest and who is standing next to you. Vance looked at Elias's arms. And I see he's already started the history lesson. Those tattoos are the only map you need to understand what sacrifice looks like. Vance nodded to Elias and stepped to the side, relinquishing the floor. The hierarchy was clear. In this room, the commander was in charge, but Elias was the master. Elias walked back to the podium. He picked up his coffee, which was now cold. He looked at Miller again. The young ensign looked like he wanted to crawl under his desk. Stand up, son, Elias said. Miller stood up, stiff and nervous. Sir. Don't sir me. I work for a living, Elias said, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. You asked a question. It was a fair question. We judge what we see. It's human nature. But in this line of work, judgment gets you killed. You have to look deeper. You have to look at the eyes, not the paint job. Elias rolled down his sleeves, covering the history, covering the scars. He became just an old man in a black t-shirt again. You want to know the real reason why I have so many tattoos? Elias asked, his voice barely a whisper, forcing everyone to lean in. Yes, Master Chief, Miller said. It's to cover up the parts of me that are missing, Elias said. Every time I lost a piece of my soul, I painted over it so I wouldn't have to look at the empty space. You boys are blank canvases. You're perfect. My job is to teach you how to stay that way for as long as possible. But make no mistake, if you do this job right, if you do it long enough, you will get marked. Maybe not with ink, but you will get marked. He picked up a piece of chalk and turned to the blackboard. He drew a simple, vertical line. This is you, he said. He drew a jagged, chaotic circle around it. This is the world. He turned back to them. Survival isn't about conquering the world. It's about keeping that line straight while the world tries to bend it. Now, open your notebooks. We're going to talk about water procurement in a hostile urban environment. And I don't want to hear a single word about apps or filters. We're going to talk about how to stay alive when the world wants you dead. The room was electric. The recruits opened their notebooks with a fervor they had never shown before. Pens hovered over paper, ready to capture every syllable. Miller sat there, his eyes glued to Elias. He wasn't looking at a biker anymore. He was looking at a prophet. For the next 3 hours, Elias spoke. He didn't use jargon. He didn't use buzzwords. He told stories of thirst so deep it made you hallucinate. He spoke of hiding in sewage pipes to avoid patrols. He spoke of the psychological weight of being hunted. And through it all, the recruits saw the tattoos in a new light. When Elias gestured, the jagged lines on his arms seemed to move, animating the stories. The ink wasn't graffiti. It was a living document of human endurance. When the lecture ended, nobody moved to leave. The dismissal bell rang, but they sat there. Elias packed up his battered notebook. He finished his cold coffee. He looked at the class one last time. "Class dismissed," he said. As he walked toward the door, Miller shot up from his seat. He practically ran down the aisle. "Master Chief, Elias!" "Wait," Miller stammered. Elias stopped and turned. "Yeah?" Miller extended his hand. "Thank you. I'll never judge a book by its cover again. I promise." Elias took the hand. His grip was iron, surprisingly strong for a man who looked so frail. He pulled Miller in slightly, looking him dead in the eye. "Don't worry about the book, kid," Elias said. "Just worry about the story you're going to write. Make it a good one, and try to keep the ink off your skin if you can. It hurts like hell when it rains." Elias winked, a flash of the young wild warrior he once was, and walked out into the bright California sun. The room remained quiet for a long time after he left. The recruits looked at each other, then at their own unmarked arms. They gathered their things slowly with a new heaviness in their movements. They had walked in thinking they were the apex predators. They walked out realizing they were just cubs who had been lucky enough to meet the lion. Respect isn't about how shiny your boots are or how many followers you have. It isn't about talking the loudest in the room. Respect is the quiet acknowledgement of the burdens others carry. It's understanding that every scar has a story, and every gray hair is a lesson learned the hard way. We live in a world that is quick to judge, quick to dismiss the old, the worn, and the quiet. But as Elias showed those recruits, sometimes the quietest man in the room is the one who has made the most noise in history. So the next time you see an old-timer with faded tattoos or a veteran walking with a limp, don't stare, don't judge. Nod your head, say thank you. Because the freedom you enjoy, to sit here and watch this, the safety of your home, was paid for in ink and blood by men like him. If you stand with our veterans, if you honor the old guard, and if you believe that true strength is silent, subscribe to the channel. Share this story to keep the legacy alive. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong.